Today's guest is a family man, filmmaker, aka YouTuber, and multi-passionate ADHD educator. Some might even call him an influencer, and he certainly is influential. He's done a ton for me in my career, and one of his go-to phrases that anyone getting started should appreciate is the term no small creator. In this episode, he shares his journey from struggling with ADHD to figuring out how to manage it and eventually embracing it as a strength. We also talk about the importance of not taking life too seriously, and he shares the secrets to figuring out this whole authentic content creation thing as he talks about his own unique journey. Please welcome to interview 63, Cody Wanner. Beauty. Well, I've done a lot of interviews now, and podcasting's been like my go-to medium. It's something that I feel like I'm getting better and better at. And as I have, my first line of questioning has changed. I've so often been like, hey, who are you and what do you do? Which is an okay question. I appreciate it because it gives us a chance to define ourselves. I'm always like, oh, thank you so much for being on the show. But it feels like things get a little bit scripted when I have too much of the same stuff. So I want to start a little bit heavy hitting, but slightly off topic for a second, Cody. I saw you tweet about the fact that you don't want to take everything too serious. And it was a really recent tweet because it was just today that I read this. And that's a pretty broad topic, the idea of what things we should or should not take serious. But I think it'd be really cool just to capture a little bit beyond the X number of characters of what you meant with that topic.
That tweet just came from this idea of like, it's so easy to get caught up thinking everything is so important, like, I gotta make money. I gotta stay healthy. I gotta make sure everybody likes me. And I need to, just like every single thing that we have to do. I gotta get good grades. I gotta do all of the stuff. And like it all has to be perfect. And I need to do a good job at all of it. And don't get me wrong, like I'm an advocate for doing a good job at your life. But just for me, when I'm a little bit more relaxed, when like I'm a little bit less caught up in trying to be perfect and I can just like poke fun at things and just, honestly, just take stuff a little bit less seriously. That's when I see some of my best results and when I enjoy the work that I put out the most. And so it just came from that idea of like, oftentimes when I tweet or when I make a video or make a TikTok or an Instagram reel or whatever, oftentimes it is really just like me giving a message to myself. And that's what that was for me, is almost a reminder or a declaration of, Cody, don't take everything quite so seriously. Let the not serious stuff be playful. Let the not serious stuff slide a little bit more.
I really appreciate it. I'm a big fan of the Joker, and obviously one of the lines that they always use from that is "why so serious?" And that has a very negative, dark side to it, I suppose. But also in Van Wilder, I remember him saying the line, "Don't take life so seriously, you'll never get out alive." And that really speaks to that idea too. It can be hard because we have that tension creep up when we have a deadline or we have things that, we really want to do, or we put pressure on ourselves as athletes or creators or parents or anything like that. For me, it's definitely something growing up in a funeral home that was always front of mind. Like, all the cliches about death are cliches for a reason, and they're not going away anytime soon. I don't usually share this this early in a show, or maybe if at all, but the painting behind me, my dad created, and he put both of my youngest brother's ashes in it. So in the leaves and in that forest. And when I'm out here making stuff, I have an opportunity to look at that. So that topic is right in my wheelhouse, so to speak. That being said, it's still really tough, right? Like it still gets away from us, like, and we tend to take things too serious. So I really wanted to be serious and ask that question off the bat because it spoke to me. Obviously, I do a lot of research when I have guests coming on this show, especially if I don't know them. This one's unique to me because I've followed your journey. I've looked up to it for a very long time. So I had to do a lot less research, but I popped into Twitter just to see what was kind of fresh, and that really stood out to me. So I just wanted to hear your take on it.
Awesome. Love it.
So the other thing is that in your bio, you have YouTuber, you have the mention of ADHD and being a filmmaker. If I were to then ask that cliche question of how you define yourself, because the internet beyond that tiny bio will define you anyways. When you put out a piece of content, they'll claim you as something, but I want to give you a chance just to speak to an audience that's maybe never heard who Cody Wanner is and just tell us who you see yourself as, at least in the world as you woke up today.
That's an interesting way to phrase the question. I honestly, when I think of myself and my own identity, I think of myself as a husband, a father, and a lover of life, someone who loves to have fun and really maybe not even a lover of life, maybe just a lover. I love the idea of people around me feeling loved. I love the idea of just making people smile, making my kids feel cherished, making my wife feel cherished and my friends feel cherished and respected and wanted. Like, that's who I really am. I think at my core is a lover and somebody who really loves people. When it comes to my work and my career, I am a video maker. I make videos, whether that's for companies like freelance, whether it's for myself, my own business on my own YouTube channel or my own social media platforms. But I love making videos. In 2018, very strongly embraced the idea of myself having ADHD and very much embraced and started outwardly expressing I have ADHD, and yes, there are disabling pieces of it, but there's also a lot about it that is good and is not necessarily bad. It's just different. It's different from what society kind of has come to expect. So I'm not good at a lot of stuff in a traditional sense, but I'm good at a lot of other stuff in maybe a non-traditional sense. And really started kind of putting that out there and embracing that. And I've had a good amount of content that really resonated with other people around that topic of ADHD. So, yeah, in a nutshell, that's me, dude.
As I mentioned, like, I didn't need to do research for this one. I did because I'm a professional when it comes to this medium, so I'm pretty prepared. But I feel like without ever looking at a note or thinking of any of the research I did, we could just go off on a tangent right now and be circling back after like a Joe Rogan 4 hours, which I won't do to you today. But once, in the future, we'll do maybe some crazy deep dive in person or something.
Awesome.
That being said, I'd love to stick there with the ADHD piece for a second. My coming from traditional education, where you have this weapons of mass instruction butting up against the idea of project-based learning and designing with a student focus and these kinds of things. As the industry of education evolves and changes, it can be hard for a lot of youth in terms of figuring out how they learn best, stuff like that. One of the places they go to see a lot of content, I was going to say TikTok, but let's just say social media and short form video. So shorts, reels, TikToks, insert other platform here. But the idea of scrolling the feed and seeing right now, ADHD is almost like a niche. If you did just go crazy and create 10 videos a day about that, like, it would crush because people are so interested in that topic. Mm-hmm. I think the downside of that is there's a lot of confusion. I swear people who, I don't want to judge, but anyways, I swear some people are just creating the content because it does well. So what does that mean when you say you embraced your own diagnosis, and like, just take us through that journey of finding out that you had ADHD and how do you define it?
Yeah, great stuff. I think I definitely think that ADHD is a big and kind of complex, almost like misnomer. Like the idea that ADHD could just be one thing is, I think, to me at least, wrong. I think it's very complex, and I've seen this in the way different people who have different types of ADHD, or even the same type of ADHD, like inattentive ADHD, is what I've been diagnosed with. How that plays out differently in each of our lives, right? And I see it in the comment sections on my own TikToks, right? Because I'll put out something where it's like, this is how it is. This is how I go through life. This is a struggle that I have, whatever. And you see people with ADHD, at least I assume they have it, coming in and saying, that it's not like that for me. I don't experience the world like this. So it's really one of those things where it is complex and it's multifaceted, and to try to give it one definition, I think is tough. But that's what doctors have to do, right? Like that's what the medical system has to do, is they put stuff in their DSM manual and try to just like categorize things, right? It's like giving structure to the world. That's what humans are doing. So I don't blame them, but I'm just saying it's probably harder than just that. So back to your question, what did it mean to embrace the diagnosis, and what does ADHD mean to me? To embrace the diagnosis, I mean, very like practically, I am and was in 2018. So in 2018, I was daily vlogging, and I was constantly late for appointments, like 5 to 10 minutes late for in-person meetings, right? And just felt a common thread across people with ADHD, especially if they've been diagnosed as an adult, is feeling guilt and shame for being the way that we are. So just feeling incredibly guilty, like not only because I'm wasting the time of somebody, but because it's like, why can't I overcome this stupid thing? Like, I just want to be on time. I just want to be an on-time person. Why can't I just do it? Like, and that is another common thread of ADHD, is why can't I just XYZ? Like, why can't I just get started? Why can't I just go do the dishes? Why can't I just hold down a job for more than 6 months? Why can't I just focus on this thing that I want to do? And was having a lot of those why can't I just moments, while I was daily vlogging. I had a lot of balls in the air that felt like I was juggling. And I just started to kind of wonder, what would it look like if I stopped kind of apologizing for who I am and started just kind of wearing it on my sleeve and telling people, when you work with me, I work very well off of deadlines. You can never tell me, get this to me whenever. I need a hard deadline. And if you're able to give me some grace on the deadline, that's great, but never tell me that you're going to be giving me that grace. Because if you say, hey, deadline's Friday, but no worries if you don't get it to me till Tuesday, my brain is only going to say deadline's Tuesday. And so, just trying to really like, I am often late for meetings. I'm sorry. If you want to go the extra step of like telling me to get to places 10 minutes early, that would be actually helpful to me. I would appreciate that. Really just starting to embrace and tell people, both on YouTube and in my day-to-day life, like, hey, this is who I am. These are some of the things that I struggle with. I'm also very creative. I connect things. My brain connects things in a way that not everybody's brain does. And that has worked out very well for me and could work very well for your brand, when we're making videos. So it's like, we've got these two things. Let's figure out how to make them work together. Really started to embrace that and just kind of wear that on my sleeve and not, try as hard as I could to not feel ashamed about that stuff. And so that's the answer to what it means for me to embrace it. The answer to what I think ADHD is, again, I'm not going to try to define it for other people, but for me, ADHD is an a inability to do the stuff that I want to do. And I was having a conversation with someone I'm really close to a couple years ago now. And he said, you know, yeah, like, doesn't everybody kind of struggle with not doing boring stuff, right? Like, maybe I had defined ADHD by I don't like doing boring stuff, monotonous stuff. It's hard for me to do monotonous stuff. He was like, doesn't everybody struggle with that? Like, nobody wants to do monotonous stuff. And at the time I was like, yeah, we do. I mean, I think it's like to a slightly different degree for me, but I couldn't really think of the answer of like, well, how am I different from everybody in that case? But then I'm not sure when it was. It was more than a year after that. And I'm pretty sure I saw this. I'm pretty sure I didn't just come up with this. But the distinction is someone who doesn't have ADHD, they have a hard time doing the boring stuff that they don't want to do. But someone with ADHD has a hard time doing the boring stuff that we do want to do. The stuff that I desperately want to do, I cannot make myself do it. And I think that distinction is one that's pretty helpful for me. But what it looks like just, day-to-day life for me is very creative, very disconnected thoughts, very just kind of noticing something, getting an idea and wanting to just seeing that idea and knowing that if I just dive into that idea, it might take me 4 hours, but like I'm going to have a blast just making that thing or going down that rabbit hole or going on that adventure. Right. And sometimes doing that instead of doing what it is that I need to do, instead of being on time for meetings, or instead of, missing meetings or completely forgetting about stuff that is extremely important to me because I'm so hyper focused on this other thing that was interesting to me at the moment. So disconnected thoughts, and then maybe the second thing is just that inability to focus on and do the stuff that I truly do want to do, and just kind of sitting there doing nothing, getting upset at myself for not being able to do that stuff,
which becomes a very vicious cycle. And isn't this all fascinating? Because one of the things that I've noticed goes hand in hand with people who share similar journeys is this ability to stay in the moment, which is something that Eckhart Tolle and anyone teaching mental health is going to say.
Mm-hmm.
Learn how to get so embraced in flow. Like Mihai Csikszentmihalyi will talk about flow and the idea that getting so enthralled in that you would forget to do something, yet we're talking about it as a negative. So it's so fascinating that their side of the coin exists too. And when you were sharing about the adult diagnosis, sometimes for me, asking this question, I asked it of another recent guest who had he had an online program called the Hogwarts for Dyslexics. He's also diagnosed with ADHD, but it was really interesting. And we didn't even dive enough into the topic because we got sidetracked. But that being said, it's almost like a little bit of holding up a mirror for me, I feel like, because I've never been diagnosed with ADHD. I have been diagnosed in younger years with depression and acute anxiety. And there's been a lot of doctors who have told me to try mindfulness and take pills and do things like this. The ADHD thing never really came up, but a lot of people will say things and they'd laugh to listen to this. Like they'll use the term, your brain makes my brain hurt. And they're referring to me. And as I get old enough to self-reflect a little bit, maybe wisdom, I don't know what you want to call it, but I'm like, oh shit, maybe I really do fall into that category too. And it's hard not to feel pain as you're telling some of your own stories.
Yeah.
Too, because it's like things that I want to do but can't do them. I've never gone to a doctor in the last 20 years. I don't know. It wasn't like a thought like, hey, maybe I should go check this out. What was it that made you start to go down that road as an adult?
Yeah. It's actually very simple. So, I was super lucky in high school, elementary school, high school, middle school that I could get interested in most of the subjects that I was being taught in school. Could I do homework? No, 100% I could not do homework. But in class, when the teacher was presenting or, I was outgoing, I loved kind of the in-class stuff. And, um, later on in life, I was introduced to a term called um, twice exceptional, and and something clicked for me then too. But I was twice exceptional when I was in high school. In that, yes, I had ADHD. No, I was not able to do homework. No, I could not do any part of the mundane part of school, but I could grasp concepts very quickly and I could retain information extremely well as long as I was interested in it. And so, on tests, I would do extremely well, and I would do very well in class participation. And so, and then I would get like a 0 on the homework portion of whatever the grade was, right? So I graduated from high school with a 3 point whatever. I did fine in high school. Similar thing in college. I would procrastinate. You had a lot more freedom in college. So I would just, we had a paper due and I would be out. I'd be having fun with my friends. I'd be hanging out with who then would become my wife, whatever it would look like. We'd stay out till all hours of the morning. I'd go back to my dorm room, 4 a.m. I'd fall asleep for an hour and a half, get up at 5:30, just in a fugue state, flow state, just write a paper, hand it in, and what do you know? Everything's confirmed. I get an A on this paper with a note. These are some of the most intriguing thoughts I've ever read. Or so I'm like, why would I change? Like, this is perfect. I love this. This is fantastic. Again, would never do homework, would never study. And teachers hated that. Professors hated that about me. But they loved that I was this person who could engage at a high level and would do well on tests and whatnot, very interactive. So it worked. Like, my ADHD worked for me. And again, this is not something that is true of every or potentially most people with ADHD, right? But for me, it worked for all the way through college. And then graduated from college, year later, got married, got a job. And that was when the first signs of there's something wrong with me started hitting. And in that job, I was a fundraiser. What I had to do was call people, set up meetings with them, go and meet with them, try to get them to give some money, come back, write up a report about whatever the meeting was, and do it again, right? And so I would meet with my boss every 2 weeks. I would report on, this is how many calls I made, this is how many visits I set up, this is how many donations I made, that sort of thing. And honestly, they didn't even care how much money I raised. They really just wanted me to go and meet with people, right? And in my mind, I'm like, I should be good at this. I love people. I love like sales. I love every part of this. Well, I should be good at this. Why am I not good at this? What I would do is basically sit there at my office on the days when I didn't have meetings, and I would just stare at my computer. I would stare at my portfolio of people that I should be calling, trying to set up meetings with, but I just couldn't force myself to take the steps necessary to set up these meetings, right? So instead, my creative brain was like, what you should do instead of trying to set up these meetings is you should figure out a way to get these people to give money without meetings needing to happen, because it's more efficient. You should figure out a more efficient way to do this job. So I would start figuring, like, I came to my boss with so many different ideas about what if we raise money like this. And my boss, eventually said to me, Cody, these are all great ideas. And like, please, by all means, continue to bring them to me. But what we really need is for you to implement our system. And I went back to my office and I'm like, I don't want to implement somebody else's system. I don't want to do this. I don't like this system. I think this system is not good. I want to make my own system. So that's when the seed got planted of like, maybe I should leave this job. Maybe I should become an entrepreneur. Maybe I should do my own thing. It was a couple months then after that I resigned, but it was twofold. So it was, I wasn't doing my job, and I was very ashamed of the fact that I wasn't doing my job. I also wanted to do this other thing that my job did not require. So left that job, started as a freelancer, as an entrepreneur, making videos. And, in the beginning, when it was novel, when it was brand new, when my back was against the wall and like I had to start selling videos or else, I wasn't going to have any money, everything went great, and just in, again, kind of that flow state, that kind of rush of like getting new clients and going out and shooting their stuff. And then again, procrastinating on edits until the night before they were due, but then getting them done. And in that morning or whatever, sending them over to the client, got it done for maybe the first year or two, not extremely well, but got it done. But then, as I got less and less interested and more bored with the concept of making these videos over and over. Like I was a wedding videographer at first. So, the same video, just going to weddings, and now I'm shooting this, and now I got to do this, and oh, they don't like the music, so I got to change the music. There's a lot of monotony in making videos. There is so much monotony in making videos. And so much that becomes the same, especially when you're trying to scale it, right? Then there's the whole other side of like, you need to keep good records of how much money you're making, of all your expenses, so that you can work with your accountant to file your taxes properly. You need to communicate with the government in certain ways so that you don't get fines, and all that sort of stuff. Terrible at all of that. Not doing any of that, just literally just, I'm making money. We got money in the bank, so we're good. So after about 2 years of that, that's when everything started to really hit the fan. I think I got this, I think it was around then that I got this letter from the government that was like, you owe us $5,000 for a mistake you made 3 years ago. Didn't have $5,000. Just really like was late with like literally every single one of my clients. Really late on delivering them their videos. Just like my system and how I had done my life for my whole life up until that point was no longer working. And I did not know how to flip a switch to make it start working again. And it was at that point that I, said to my wife, so I've always known this, but I think I have ADHD. And I think almost every single one of these problems that we're seeing is a result of my ADHD. And so I want to go to the doctor and see if there's a way we can try to treat this, whether it be pills or whatever it looks like, prescription or whatever it looks like. Went to the doctor, immediately diagnosed with ADHD, started some medication that didn't work, made me really mad, started some other medication that didn't work because of the insane crash that would happen at the end of it. And so tried that for about 6 months, but then started to introduce a little bit more exercise into my life. Started trying to clean up my diet a little bit. So stuff started working a little bit better. But yeah, that was the thing that caused me to seek diagnosis. Was just, it felt like my life had exploded and there was nothing I could do to fix it.
I referenced my brother's passing, and one of them struggled for many years trying to figure out the medication piece with his ADHD and also how that connected to real life. And sadly, in my belief, strong belief, is that much of that struggle led to self-medicating and things that became a really bigger problem for him.
Yeah.
And It's just one of those really interesting topics because it just seems too easy to write like a tweet thread that says like eat healthy, sleep well, and then you're going to be good. Like, and again, we could go around in circles forever talking about this because it's probably an individualized problem. Like you said, the people in your comments are all different. And
Right.
one of the things that's been bothering me on Twitter recently is seeing everyone use the word distilled, because I remember that as like a science term, and they're like, I've read this whole book and I've distilled it for you into these 4 points. I'm like, that's so interesting. It's like become a buzzword that is triggering to me. But it is hard to distill all these things down to like such small points. But I appreciate you trying, because some of the best people for me to have on the show are the people that are going through these challenges, because that's very much my target audience. And if people don't talk about it, then people just think that they're only weird or they feel alone in this journey. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And a really interesting connection was you were saying that the work world didn't work, so maybe I should try entrepreneurship. My wife would probably be like, yeah, that might be the wrong thing to try, because like you're going from I need structure to now I have way less structure. You shared a bit of those challenges, obviously, with keeping up with people's videos and that. But for someone else, like to think through that lens, if they were going to be like, okay, I'm going for this because I can't work the 9 to 5 anymore, my brain just doesn't fit in.
Yeah.
If we were to give them some of those checklist things that can be helpful, what else would you add?
So I read a book called Driven by Douglas Brackman. And when I say read, I mean listen to. I'm a very good audiobook listener. And again, I can retain information when I just listen to it or when I read it, but it's easier for me to listen like while I'm driving or something. But listen to this book, Douglas Brackman. Honestly, ever since I've listened to it, I've been meaning to, sorry for the word, but I've been meaning to make a video where I distill the information from this book, because it is a very dry book, but the concepts in it were extremely helpful for me when it comes to, again, like embracing my way of thinking as opposed to trying to fight against the stuff that I don't do well. But just to give a bit of credit or weight to what you were just saying and what your wife would maybe say if you went from, with the idea of going from structure to non-structure with entrepreneurship. One of the things that I've heard often and talked about with my other friends who have ADHD is the paradoxical nature of it, right? In one sense, we desperately need structure, while at the same time we hate any structure that is given to us or put on us, or that we feel forced to a box that we feel forced to fit into. So it's this constant play of like, I found even most of the structures that I've created for myself and systems that I've created to implement in business, I end up not liking. I end up wanting to scrap and do some other way, because I just don't like any sort of structure or system. So it's paradoxical. It's totally paradoxical. But yeah, I mean, so I will preface all of this by saying this is hard, and there is no surefire formula for like how to be a good entrepreneur with ADHD. That is the preface. Like, and what I say right now may not work for you. And even the fact that I'm saying it might be the thing that makes it not work for you, because of something I've been learning more about called pathological demand avoidance. The idea that when someone tells us to do something, and this is more of an autism thing actually than it is an ADHD thing. Though some people think. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Pathological.
I know where you were heading there for a second, and I was like, okay.
Right. Pathological demand avoidance, right, is something that I experience at least to some degree. And that is just the idea that when I am told to do something, there's a part of me, sometimes a big part of me, sometimes a little part of me, that wants to do the exact opposite. that cannot do that thing. Even if I was planning on doing that thing, now I don't want to do the thing because I was told to do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm doing that for you right now, just know I feel you, and know that I believe in you and your creative ability to keep going and keep figuring stuff out and keep on coming up with new ideas on how to get this done and how to make it. Honestly, the biggest thing, the best advice that I could give to somebody with ADHD is to keep going. And it might be the hardest thing in the world every single morning when you wake up, but keep going, because you are infinitely creative and there's an infinite number of ideas that you can come up with to solve the problems that you're facing. And the only way to get to those solutions is to keep going. It is this consistent kind of daily journey, adventure that we're all on. And it's, it's something that I want to be on that journey with other people. And I want other people to know that they're not alone on that journey, that so many of us are in that same adventure, on that same path, in that same journey. Right. So keep going is the best advice. But what I try to do for myself is add a level of NICU to every single thing that I do. NICU stands for, you can remember it because it's where a baby goes. If they're born premature, they go to the NICU, which is like the neonatal intensive care unit. That's why that is a word, NICU, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of ADHD, what it stands for is novelty, interest, challenge, and urgency. So novelty, I've already talked about. When I started my business and it was brand new, because it was new, anytime we find something new, there is a massive spike of dopamine that helps us to pursue that thing simply because it is new. Interest is, I've never met an ADHDer who, when they find something extremely interesting, can't hyper focus on that thing, at least for some amount of time. So if there's a level of interest, you're going to be able to also find that dopamine. Challenge, and this plays out differently for different people. There's a lot of people, one of my most successful videos on ADHD is around this concept. And a lot of people have a difficult time with this. And I think that it could be in large part due to the way that they were schooled and how much shame they felt because of school when it comes to challenge. But challenge is just the idea that if there is a level of you're being tested, you have to navigate this in a certain way. There is an opportunity to do this potentially better than either somebody else or you or whatever. If there's a challenge involved, you might find the dopamine. And then the one that without fail always seems to work is urgency. And that is where deadlines come in. That is where when someone with ADHD truly feels, and again, this is not carte blanche, like this is not true of every one of us. So I'm sorry that I'm speaking in those terms, but when someone with ADHD feels a true sense of urgency, not a fabricated one, not a deadline that we've made for ourselves, not something that doesn't seem real to us, but when we feel a true sense of urgency, most of us can click into a mode, a gear, a flow state that is unlike anything that a normal quote unquote person could do. I just read this tweet the other day, and my wife then brought it up to me, and it was from an ADHDer on Twitter, and she was like, an ADHDer has 3 types of work days. The first is get absolutely nothing done. The second is get absolutely nothing done for 4 hours and then get 8 hours of work done in the remaining 4 hours. And the third is get 40 hours of work done in an 8-hour day. And I resonate with that so strongly because that has to do with that last piece of NICU, which is urgency. So Yeah, the one that I would add to NICU, as I've started to like build out my thoughts around this is together. So uh, there is something called body doubling, which is a tactic, a strategy that people use in order to get stuff done. And that is just simply if I am with somebody who is also working and I tell them, I'm saying, this is what I'm doing right now. And they say, okay, cool. This is what I'm doing right now. And we're just together. And this actually works online. This works over Zoom as well. If I do that, the chances that I'm going to actually do that thing that I set out to do are like increase significantly because I feel like, they're working and I'm working. That's what we're doing. We're in a work mode right now. So adding together to that, to that equation is the last thing I would add. But NICU is the steps that I try to live by.
Nick Cube.
Yeah.
I'll remember it like that now. And the body doubling thing is really interesting. The other stuff really spoke to me, like right off the bat, I could kind of like make connections and whatnot. And then when you mentioned the body doubling, it's interesting because in the creator world, I see mostly solopreneurs or people creating as personal brands and then outsourcing certain tasks. But it's rare to see true partnerships and co-founders. I often find myself compelled to want to try that. There are two creators who have a writing program, Ship 30 for 30, Dickie Bush and Nicholas Cole. And they've built that whole business now themselves. Mm-hmm. So every YouTube video, they're both on there.
Interesting.
Every webinar, they're both on there. Like it's a co-founded creator business. And I often have like a little pang of like jealousy watching that because I'm like, I'm here by myself every night working on a newsletter or editing this podcast and whatnot. Yeah. And I wonder if there's some interest in that beyond just working together, but also having a similar mission. That's just me self-reflecting out loud.
Good stuff.
Appreciated when you said that the book was a bit dry because there's some books by Sir Ken Robinson, rest in peace, and Carol Dweck on growth mindset. And then there's a book called Brainstorm that's all about helping teens like figure similar, all this stuff out. And in all three of those cases, I've always thought somebody needs to make the more entertaining version of those because they're very academia traditional writers. So maybe for that driven book, you just need to make your version.
Right. The TikTok version of it,
Yeah, that's just it. When it comes to people wanting to go into these worlds, like one of the things when it comes to being a creator the thing that you are known for, I think if I were to ask most people in one word, is being a filmmaker, being a YouTuber. You've had an ebb and flow between people seeing you making content just for yourself, sharing that you're open to taking on corporate contracts as well. We met at a Red Bull meetup in Toronto when you were there filming some YouTube specific content, I believe. For you right now, how do you see the landscape if you were advising, let's say, like a nephew or something who I really want to be a YouTuber and I'm, 15. Give me some advice, Cody. Like, what's your masterclass to help that person get started and how they should think about it?
Yeah, I always say I think better in crash courses than I do in masterclasses, right? But my crash course would be 100% start posting videos about the topic that you think you're interested in, right? Just get started. Something I've been telling myself a lot recently is start and let the thing pull you into it. Because I've found that even with some mundane stuff that I don't want to do, if I start it, there is a sense of pull that can happen. It doesn't happen all the time, but it'll pull you into it. So that's on the ADHD front. When it comes to YouTube, there really is a beautiful thing about the fact that just the more videos on a topic you can put on a channel, the higher success rate that channel has. And if you allow yourself to get pulled into a topic and you keep making different types of content around that topic, and you keep looking at your stuff and looking at people's stuff who you like, and maybe every video you're getting a little bit better and a little bit better, and your storytelling style, really starts to get dialed in, or maybe your production value goes up, or maybe someone notices and you collaborate with a bigger channel or something. None of that can happen unless you just start putting content on YouTube around whatever that topic is. And that's really my biggest one is don't wait. Like, get your phone out and make a rant about whatever the topic is. Then take that rant, try and transcribe it, put it into Chat GPT and say, give me 50 video ideas around this topic. See what Chat GPT kicks out, right? Like, then look at those ideas. Maybe you don't use any of them, but maybe that got your brain moving a little bit. Or maybe you do like 4 of them. Make those 4 videos. Are they going to be the best videos? No, they're going to be terrible videos. But the beautiful thing about YouTube is, and you see this time and time again, the creators who have found the most success on the platform are making the same video over and over and over again. They're making the same video over and over and over again. So what you have to realize is, like, just because you made a video and you know that you can make it better on that same topic, you will make it better on that same topic in the future. You can make that same exact video in the future and have it be 20 times better, and that'll be nothing but good for your channel. So yeah, main piece of advice is just get started. Watch a couple YouTubers talk about storytelling, watch a couple YouTubers talk about B-roll and editing. Like, YouTube is insane because you can talk about masterclass. Like, you can create your own masterclass right on the YouTube platform. You can create your own course of how to make YouTube videos, of how to, filmmaking, how to make money, making videos, all the different stuff. It's all right there. And it's really a matter of diving in, committing to spend time every single day, honing this craft of building a YouTube channel. And honestly, I like the key differentiator between people who make it on YouTube and people who don't make it on YouTube is just, did they stop or not? The people who stop making videos, yeah, they don't make it. The people who keep going, keep on iterating and keep wanting it, I think that for the most part, at some point, they're going to see some success on the platform.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to just, think of the idea of making art and keep going. That's definitely probably the hook point for this whole episode.
Yeah.
When it comes to the idea of a channel, there's a lot of like buzz out there, but like your channel has to be about gardening in your windowsill versus like your channel should be, super random. And then like I feel that a lot of people don't start, or maybe they start and they stall because they're struggling with like questions that are a little bit esoteric, but at the same time, I know people would love to hear like how you feel about being niche or not.
Yeah, I mean, so when I started my channel, it did have a niche, right? The niche of my channel when I started the daily vlog was encouragement for running a small business. If I had to put it in a nutshell, it was encouragement for running a small business. Then it sort of went a little bit more towards like how to make videos. It went towards like a little bit towards gear of videos, but the encouragement piece kind of stayed in there. And because it was a daily vlog, just because the nature of vlogs, there was all these other crazy videos, like going to Great Wolf Lodge with my family, or going on a trip, or like doing I did like a recipe video one time, or just jumping into tutorials, how to do stuff with your phone. So in one sense, I had a niche. In another sense, I didn't have any sort of niche at all. And I'll put it this way. I think the best way, the fastest way to grow a YouTube channel is to pick a niche and make good videos consistently around that niche. The issue is most people, when they're starting out, don't know whether the niche that they've chosen is A, something that they're going to remain interested in, and B, something that they can make compelling content around. So because of that, I tend to say, just start making videos about whatever you want to make videos about. And when you do find that thing that, week after week, you can make a compelling video about, maybe you start a new channel if your channel has already exploded or something, and it's exploded for a reason that you didn't want it to explode, content that you don't want to make. Maybe you start a new channel. But the fact of the matter is, like, no step that you've taken is wasted. Even if I had to start a new YouTube channel today, that would be fine, And in fact, I've started multiple new YouTube channels like within the last 5 months, right? So it's like, it's all good. Everything you've learned up to this point is fantastic. So yeah, don't let the niche thing stop you is maybe the short way to say it. Don't let the niche thing stop you. Just start making stuff and see where it takes you.
That brings us pretty full circle to what we talked about off the hop about the idea of not taking things too seriously. And you kind of took the comment right out of my mouth, because you said that you started and I'm starting and would start. I love that question. Just like brainstorming, ideating, and creating together, even on a podcast, and showing people that you can do that. I was going to ask, what are ideas that you would have for other channels?
I mean, so the ones that I've recently started, I started a pickleball channel, which like the channel has like 17 subscribers, but some of the videos have gotten nearly 1,000 views already, because pickleball is such a up and coming sport. I've started an ADHD channel, which some of the shorts on there have gotten thousands and thousands of views. Haven't started long form on that channel yet. Those are the two main ones that I've started, but I've thought about starting a channel around how to build click funnels, just a very like sales kind of focused.
Super specific.
Yeah, very specific, tutorial based. I've thought about starting a channel that is just straight up motivation, like, daily motivation, encouragement, mindset stuff. So I really think you can. The crazy thing about YouTube is, if you have an idea, if you have something you like, here's a good test. A good test is this. Think of a product that you really want, and then go to Amazon and like search for that product. And for me, like, I'd say 80% of the time, the product already exists, right? So the idea behind that is, if you have an idea, if there's something that you're interested in, chances are there's like millions of other people out there who are also interested in that thing. And there's an audience for the type of content that you want to make. So, yeah, whatever it is, whatever your interest is, or whatever you think would be a good idea to make a YouTube channel around, chances are you're probably right.
What's interesting about this is, like, I don't often talk about myself, but as you're talking, it's reminding me of a real struggle that I had that really connects possibly to what we were talking about earlier with like our brain mindset, like, and productivity, for lack of a better term. But the day we met, actually, I was sharing at that coffee shop with different people an idea for a channel. And I'm assuming you know Michelle Carre, but I know the internet's massive. So I don't know if you know her brand, but.
Yep, I do.
So Michelle executed on that pretty much from that day. That's the exact same time. And this is one of those things that, like, a lot of people have an idea and they're like, oh, they stole my idea. I'm not like that. I really believe in abundance. So I have that problem solved. My challenge was I had 2 channels, and one was to make that stuff and one was to make this, right? They're both on the topic of learning, but I was like, oh, I need to keep them separate. Yeah. And then I found that I again, back to the idea of how our brains work, like, I had a really hard time ever posting to that channel. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to put it all on one. But I've been hesitant to do that for fear of messing with the algorithm and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I think people struggle like the opposite way too.
No, I totally agree. And like, that's all stuff to consider. But I just don't think, I think at the end of the day, getting stuff out there is more important than any of the other stuff.
Yeah, that's super powerful. I don't want to say that your strongest skill is storytelling or B-roll, or I don't know what you would consider your strongest skill is. You have a lot of skills, but for the sake of time, if you were to just pick one thing that you would be willing to brag a little bit about, what do you think sets you apart? Why are you unique as a creator on YouTube?
Huh. Yeah, it's so crazy because like there's so many people that I see and like look up to, and in many ways like try to not copy, but you know, use the positive aspects of them. And like I would say there are so many people who are better than me at almost every single aspect of YouTube, right? Um, but that being said, I think that one of the things that quote unquote sets me apart, though, again, I don't think we even like need to be set apart. I just think that I'm with you, man. Like abundance. It doesn't even matter if we're all good at this, but is maybe just kind of like realness, right? So I am not afraid to be vulnerable on my videos, to be real, and to talk about and show real life for the most part. There's stuff that's definitely off limits for me, but for the most part, show my kind of real self, right? And I think that just as a result of making daily videos, I've been able to overcome the weirdness that you feel when you're speaking to a camera, and how inauthentic that can make some people seem as they present, right? My presentation to a camera is very similar to my presentation to a person that I'm talking to in real life, or very conversational. And I think that realness, that conversationalness, that ability to make someone who's watching feel like I'm talking to them, like we're having a conversation. I think that's a skill that I've honed over the course of making the thousands of videos that I've made.
That's awesome. And if we could bottle that and give it to future creators, that'd be pretty
Yep.
cool, but we can't. So is there any particular way, or was it just trial and error, or any tricks that you have when it comes to creating authenticity on camera?
Yeah. So, I mean, first one is you start and you make videos until you get there, right? For me, I always say it was 114 videos. I made 114 videos on my vlog channel until I started to feel like it was clicking. Like that person on the screen is who I really am inside of my head. So make 114 videos. That process of recording and then having to edit yourself, and then recording and then having to edit yourself, is very, very interesting, and kind of introspective, and just very interesting. And I think it's an experiment in a sense that I wish a lot of people could have. But so that's the first one. Start, keep making until you get there. The second one is, as much as possible, try to put yourself, use your imagination in a conversation with a friend, with someone who you're pretty close to. And just, before you hit record on the camera, take 20 seconds and imagine that they're here with you. Imagine that you're telling them this new thing that you're excited about, or, how this step-by-step way that you are going to do X, Y, Z. Imagine that it's them that you're talking to. Really try to imagine that, put yourself in that environment, and then hit record and talk to the camera in that way. Again, it's not going to be perfect at first. It's going to take a while to get it dialed in, but the consistency mixed with a strong imagination to be able to put yourself in an environment where you feel comfortable and conversational, I think those are the two keys.
That's massive. And when I think of the idea of 114 videos, I also want to point out for the listeners that shorts didn't exist probably when you're getting out there and creating that at first. So
Yeah.
do you put that on the same playing field though? For someone listening right now, they might have been like, oh, okay, I can make 114 TikToks this week. Do you think that it is important to make longer form stuff still, or?
Oh, I definitely think it's important. Even just from a monetization standpoint, I think there's a lot more money still in long form stuff. But just from an artistic and self-expression standpoint, I mean, you can spend hours recording the content and editing the content for a 30-second TikTok, right? So I don't think that necessarily one versus the other is going to give you like more experience versus less experience or anything like that. I think they're both very valuable things. But yeah, for me, the the long form stuff, the stuff where I had to take hours of footage and dwindle that down into a video that's 8 minutes or less, that's what I was talking about. But no, by all means, like short form is definitely in the mix, and I think everyone should be dabbling. Everyone who wants to be should be dabbling in that as well.
You know, I'm interviewing a lot of awesome people this year, and I don't really rank people like what we were talking about earlier with abundance. I know it can be so hard as like humble creators to like say what our strengths are. You know, if I had to give you another analogy, I was going to say, pretend you're in a video game by EA Sports and we have our different rankings. Well, just pick one of them. I don't care which one, but which one would you say would be your highest rank, even if it's a 51%? But
right.
Similar to guests, but like this has been one that I've been super excited to do. You know, it's like definitely been circled on my calendar because I've always looked up to the stuff you do. I could ask questions for days on end and really collaborate with you so many times. I feel like maybe we could do one annually or something, because
Awesome.
There's so many other directions we could take these things, you know, but for the sake of time, I always want to allow for those kind of mic drop moments. I do ask theme questions as well. Those would be more rapid fire. But before I do, just wanted to give you the opportunity to, you know, on the topics we've talked about, being a new content creator, you know, I think that's people struggle. Do I want to write? Do I want to be a podcaster? Do I want to be a YouTuber? Like people new to this creator economy, they're trying to get started. Like I'd hate for you to have something that you might have mentioned that we didn't tackle. So just give you one last opportunity to tackle something if anything comes to mind.
Yeah. I'm going to say what I've been saying, but I'm going to say it in a different way. The key to all content creation and all art and just good work is reps. When you're working out, you know, the key to building muscle is to get in reps. You got to get in sets. You got to get in reps. You just got to put in the reps. It is the same exact thing when it comes to good art, good work. We've got to, each and every one of us has to get out of our own way and start putting out what we might consider bad work in order to get to the point where we've put in enough reps to be putting out good work. And the thing that is most upsetting to me is seeing the perfectionist come out of people who I truly know that they are capable of amazing, world-changing work, but their perfectionism is not allowing them to put in the reps necessary to get to that level that they want to get to. And honestly, dude, I'm speaking to myself here as well. I'm a perfectionist. This stuff hinders me as well, where I don't want to put it out because I know it's not what it could be. I know it's not good enough. I know it doesn't match the vision I have for it in my head, but we got to put it out. We got to put in the reps, because the reps are how we get to the life-changing work that we're all trying to create.
I said mic drop moment, and you nailed it. And you've got me thinking. This happens rarely, but it does happen on the show where I'm like, I almost can't ask any more questions because I just need to go sit with my thoughts and meditate because of a profound statement. And I just mentioned a minute ago the Michelle Carre thing and how she executed so well on something that I had always wanted to do, like showcase learning in short documentary style vlogs. And that's probably why a lot of times I hadn't really put those out. You know, I've started learning piano and documenting a bit of it, just didn't share it. Started learning poetry, just didn't share it. So that really, really, really hits home. And you also, like, because again, like my brain works interestingly sometimes, when you started the analogy of using fitness and putting in the reps, I was like, unfortunately, a lot of people will be wondering, what are the steroids?
Right. What are the shortcuts? Yeah. What are the shortcuts?
Yeah, but there are no steroids, maybe, I guess. Collaboration.
Well, the thing is, no way. If we want to keep the metaphor going, right? The thing is, steroids are very dangerous, right? Steroids, they have their function. Doctors prescribe them for some reasons to overcome stuff. And, if hormonal issues or all that stuff, they have their purpose. But people who take illegal anabolic steroids, they're hurting their bodies, right? And so, the steroids in this case maybe would be buying views, creating like cluster view watch clusters or Instagram clusters or whatever they call them, Twitter clusters. The steroids, the shortcuts, I can tell you are not worth it in the long run. Even if there is any sort of short-term gains, I'm telling you, the reps are the thing that is going to get us there. All right?
100%. Now we can drop the mics and move on to the theme questions. And the first one that's fun, I just love hearing these, is one thing that you're learning. It might be off topic from what we're talking about, but something that you're learning yourself.
My big thing that I am head over heels in love with right now is pickleball and everything that goes with it. It's crazy because it's a very low barrier to entry. Like the skill barrier to entry is extremely low. You can pick up a pickleball paddle and a pickleball and like be playing and having fun in about 15 minutes. As soon as you understand the rules, pretty much anybody can do it. I can play with my kids, right? 8 and 6. But the skill ceiling is extremely high. Extremely high. There's so much to learn. There's so much to know. There's so much muscle memory to build. And, I'm humbled daily every time I get on the pickleball court about why can't I just hit this shot consistently? Why am I constantly having to dive for balls when other people are just standing still, not even moving, and they're beating me? So the thing that I'm learning right now that I'm focused on is pickleball.
Sounds like a lot like YouTube.
Yeah.
In terms of the barrier to entry and the
skill ceiling
gap between, yeah, for sure. Just continuing to build skills. That's awesome.
Yep.
We'll definitely have to check out that channel. One piece of advice for the next generation. This I find hits hard when we are parents as creators. If you're able to leave that one piece of advice, knowing that you have so much wisdom, what would be the one piece of advice?
My one piece of advice for the next generation is you are so incredibly valuable. And at different times in your life, different entities outside of you are going to argue with that idea, whether that's the world, whether it's your parents, whether it's a bully at school, whether it's the boss at the first place you work, whether it's somebody on the bus. There will be people who will make you feel like you're not valuable. They will be arguing with the idea that you are incredibly valuable. And unfortunately, those voices can get into our heads as well. And we can start to argue with ourselves about our own value, our own self-worth. But I need you to know that you are incredibly valuable. That is the most basic fundamental truth. You are incredibly valuable. You have valuable stuff inside of you that you can give to the world. The value inside of you has so many different kind of consequences and repercussions and ways that it kind of manifests itself. But at the foundation, at the very most foundational level, I just need you to know you are incredibly valuable.
Thank you. That'll help a lot of people for sure. And I almost feel bad asking this next question now because, again, if we could just sit and think about that for a while, it'd be nice. But I do like to give my guests the mic, allow them to play host for a sec. And whether it's on these topics or otherwise, I'm a pretty open book. And if you were to ask me a question, given that who knows when the heck we'll collaborate again together, but you have the opportunity to ask me a question, is there something that comes to mind that you think might help the audience? Or
I think my question for you is about the people that you work with, maybe in your day job, or maybe a better way to ask it is this. We've all heard like the quote that I think is misattributed potentially to Albert Einstein. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its entire life thinking that it's useless, right? Recently, I've been seeing this thing go around on Instagram that's like, if your child is not great at school, but is an ace tennis player, hire a tennis coach, not a tutor. Just the idea that we all have our own unique and individual traits and strengths that we need to feed into. And the systems that we're in our society don't always do that, or maybe even more often than not, don't do it. I would just love to hear your take on that. And like what do you do? Say you're listening to this and you're a young person and like you feel like this is you. You feel like we're talking about you. What do you do with the fact that you still are required to get up and go to school and do something that you're not good at doing tomorrow just because that's what you have to do? What do you do with this information?
Way to drop a real simple one to wrap things up. This is my life's work summarized in 45 seconds. One of the reasons why I love this, and I'm glad I thought of this as a theme question from like the get with this show, is that I'm like, someday I have hundreds of questions to go back and create content on. I don't need ChatGPT because you just asked me an incredible friggin' question that I could make a 60-minute video on.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like one of the things I'd like to mention first is that it's really hard when we talk about socioeconomic issues. And I work with a lot of youth on the far, far ends of addiction, of trauma and abuse and homelessness who have really never had a chance. So there's nobody going to hire a tennis coach for them anytime soon. And I see a lot of things on Twitter about like, especially being on money Twitter or business Twitter about like no excuses and all this. And I'm like, some people are so far removed from those struggles that some people are going through. They don't realize that you can't close that gap with like one plank across a bridge. You need to line up a whole bunch of planks. And usually that starts with getting help and really starting to build a bit of confidence. And I feel like a lot of times there's so much that goes into helping someone pursue a dream or a goal, or as you said, they feel like this is them. So how do we help them actually get there? That it's hard to really summarize it in like step by step. But one of the things that I think is exponential is finding a hero or a mentor. And you referenced YouTube being free in many ways. So I feel like if someone's listening to this and they want to pursue something outside of the mainstream learning, then going and finding a credible person to learn from is step one, aside from taking care of their own, let's say, self-care, their physical, emotional, mental health and their personal relationships. Like if they can't even function, which is where I meet a lot of kids, there's not anything happening.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get into that, like we can start practically taking some steps towards success. Then I think that's one of the biggest things as a hero. Someone literally like yourself, Cody. And that's why I have this show, is because I see when people just go on Google and type in, how do I start being a copywriter? Because I heard that that's a good way to make money online. They get spammed with a lot of snake oil, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, I can't do this. And they give up so quickly. So like you said, referencing free things. I think more in like the macro, let's say I'll use my daughter as an example. She's probably, given her struggles with trauma, we adopted her at 2 from the NICU. She really, really has struggled with many things, walking late, talking late. And to be able to focus on like traditional schoolwork and stuff is hard for her. but she's wanted to vlog since she was like 5 years old.
Mm.
So I often think about this on a personal level too. And whether it's my students or anybody out there listening or my daughter, I feel it's the same kind of thing where the only choice is to kind of treat it a little bit in like side hustle mode, where you also have that traditional school, but at least, and I find this almost 100% of the time, if somebody has that thing, they're working on the podcast that they actually care about, they're working on the YouTube channel they actually care about, they have that intrinsic thing, then they can endure some of the like, my teacher sucks and this shit's boring, because they still have that to go home to. And for some kids, it's sports, and some kids, it's creating. But
Yeah.
I feel like picking the thing, having a caring person around to lean on when times get tough. And yeah, I mean, we could talk forever about working your way up the pyramid about how to actually succeed with the thing.
Yeah. Wait, real quick, one follow-up question. Something you just said like really struck a chord with me. Just like in my own personal kind of struggle with this. I am, and again, kind of full circle to like taking the serious stuff seriously, right? I think it's so easy to forget. Like, no, let me just get straight to the question. The question is, for those of us who have been given as much as I have been given, a strong network to grow up in, like social connections that, parents that fed value into me and told me I was valuable and that they loved me, social connections, friends who loved me and, never got insanely bullied, or just someone who's like as privileged as I am. For those people who are listening to this right now, I think it can be so hard to find the time in my life and the effort and the energy to try to go and reach out to and be an in-person mentor, an in-person guide, or an in-person hero, like you said, in somebody else's life who hasn't been given those things, who doesn't have a parent who will hire the tennis coach, who doesn't have all of the stuff that I have. For me, I just like get so wrapped up in like, I've got all my own problems. I got my own kids. I got all this stuff going on. I don't have the time or effort to go and be that in-person hero to somebody else. But I, at the same time, feel extremely compelled to do that. And I just always get so logistically stopped or something. There's like a wall there. What do you have to say to people like that?
One thing I'll say is that, again, because the way my brain works, I had to find a way to embed it in the work I was doing in some way, shape, or form. It's the whole genesis of this show. And I could talk about details of specific youth I met that led to me creating this show. But again, that was because I was like, I need to find a way to do this type of work, and call it charitable or not. It's not really. I think it's generous, but it's not charitable. Like, I'm not taking donations right now and like trying to apply them to a school yet or whatever. But creating this show was that reason. The day work I do, I get paid for, right? So it's not like I'm just full-on philanthropist going around doing charitable work. But my goal is to be able to, that's why I get so frustrated around the monetization, not struggles, but like as creators, we're trying to monetize, we're trying to build a brand, we're trying to succeed. For me, it's not for the Lambo. It's because what I want to do is get to a level where I can go into schools, but not be like, hey, school, you have to pay $9.99 for me to come talk for an hour, or like whatever. I don't want to monetize speaking or workshops or those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, coaching is just straight up not scalable no matter what. Like, I think you could scale one football team of like 45 athletes or something maybe and have an impact, but coaching just is not scalable. So I think that's just like a really difficult question to answer in terms of like how we could do it. But I think the content you create already does it, right? Like in many ways. So I don't know, maybe thinking of like a specific video that's targeted more to a particular audience or something like that. Yeah. I mean, I could brainstorm with a whiteboard too of different ideas. But you asked, what do you say to them? I think that for me, one of the hacks is figuring out a way to embed it in our work because we only have so many hours in 168 hours anyways. And I'll tell one other quick story about when I first got into education, formal education, did my master's, and everyone was like, "Oh, are you going to be the director of education?" I was seen as kind of like a really big leader in the space, and going to do the PhD and do all this. And what I realized sitting in a professor's office when she said to me, "Why would you do your PhD when you could do this so much better on something like YouTube or a personal blog without all the constraints of tradition and convention?" And I was like, "It's pretty cool to hear you say."
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that was really a big moment for me. And that's when I started this show. But I also at that time remember thinking back to someone that I really looked up to. He was a police officer for 20 plus years, and then he transitioned into traditional education, and he became the director of education for a really big school board quite quickly, worked his way up the ladder, and became the head honcho, the big boss.
Mm-hmm.
He tried to get me to stay in the city that I was living in, playing football, and to work in his schools there. And I said, I just wanted to go back home. I came back to Ottawa. But I remember his last thing saying to me was, no matter what, when you work your way up, put it in your calendar that every Monday at 10 a.m., you are going to work in the schools, because once you get into leadership, you're going to be too busy. And since then, I've seen, upwards of hundreds of leaders who got too busy to keep connected with youth. And I witnessed that firsthand. I never saw anybody since him actually do that. And when I tell that story, people in education think I'm like making up. I'm like, no, he was in the school every single Monday, even as the director of the entire school board, because that was the commitment that he wanted to make. And so I don't know what that looks like for you or for others. I mean, shit, man, you just took an hour and 15 minutes of your day to do this show, which that's the exact target audience. So that means the world as a start. But yeah, I don't know, maybe scheduling something in that you feel scratches that too.
Yeah, dude. No, I love that. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Like I said a few moments ago, it's like I knew that I'd never have to look at my notes once, and that we could just crush this episode and be like, hey, we could start a whole show. But that being said, at some point we always have to wrap, and that time is now. But before we do, if you wanted people to go check out something you're working on right now, follow your work, support you. Again, I find a lot of times, no offense to you, it's like, doesn't matter. I could have the president on and people would be like, who's that? Because the audience, a lot of times they're learning creators and they're looking to find creators they should go follow, which is interesting. That's something that I learned. I was like, oh, you don't know who so-and-so is sometimes. So anyways, where could people go support your work?
Probably the best place, the hub for me, is Twitter. I guess it's now X, formerly known as Twitter. I like to call it Twitter still. But Twitter.
Until they change their URL.
Right. Twitter.com/Cody Wanner. Cody Wanner is my handle there. And that's kind of the hub for all the different places. I'm also Cody Wanner on TikTok, Cody Wanner on Instagram. On YouTube, which is ironic and funny because it's my main platform, I'm R as in Robert Cody Wanner, R Cody Wanner. But yeah, any of those places. But Twitter's one of my most favorite places. I try to make it a positive place. I know some people have a really negative view of Twitter, but I try to make it a positive place, an encouraging place, and it's a great hub to kind of get to all of the different places that I am on the internet.
Love it. Mic drop as promised, but we'll definitely have to do this again sometime. It means the world that you took the time to do this today, so thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Boom.
Sick, dude. Thanks so much, man. That was great.
JKL listeners, thank you so much for being here. These interviews are a ton of fun to create, and it would mean the world if you pass the show along to friends or family that you think might also benefit or appreciate. The more the show grows, the more guests want to hop on, and the sort of creator flywheel can continue to spin. Thank you to our guest today, Cody. He's one of those really genuine, kind, generous, creative people who are also really successful. Given the challenges that he's had in his own life, it's pretty inspiring to see how well he manages to be able to give back while still building such an awesome brand for himself and being a great guy all around. As always, we love getting your DMs or comments about the show. If you have any input on guests or topics, please don't be shy, just let us know. Until the next episode, all the best, and remember, just keep learning.